Jake Morrison sat in the cold metal chair and looked around the huge chamber. The walls stretched up so high he could barely see the ceiling. Thousands of alien beings filled the seats around him. Some looked like giant insects. Others were made of what seemed like living crystal. A few floated in the air without any visible means of support. This was the Galactic Council, and Jake was the first human to ever set foot inside it. The chamber buzzed with hundreds of different languages. Translators worked overtime to make sense of all the voices. Jake touched the small device in his ear that would let him understand what they were saying. He had practiced with it for months, but being here was different from any training. A tall crystalline being stood up at the front of the room. Its body caught the light and threw rainbows across the walls. When it spoke, its voice sounded like wind chimes in a storm. "I am Veltar of the Zephyrian Collective," it said. "Today we decide the fate of the species called humans from the planet Earth." Jake kept his face calm, but inside his heart was beating fast. He had known this day would come. Earth had been sending radio signals into space for over 100 years. Someone was bound to notice eventually. "The evidence is clear," Veltar continued. "These humans are dangerous. They fight wars against their own kind. They poison their own planet. They build weapons that can destroy entire cities." A huge screen appeared in the air above the chamber. Images began to play. Jake watched as the council saw videos of human wars, nuclear explosions, and polluted rivers. He saw pictures of Earth's cities covered in smog. He watched footage of soldiers marching and tanks rolling through streets. The images were real. Jake could not deny any of it. Humans had done all of these things. "Look at their history," Veltar said. "War after war, violence after violence. They cannot even live in peace with each other. How can we trust them to live in peace with us?" More images played. The council watched humans cutting down forests. They saw factories pumping smoke into the sky. They saw weapons testing and military parades. "In the past 1,000 years," Veltar continued, "we have welcomed 47 species into the galactic community. Some were peaceful, some were warlike, but none were as unstable as these humans." A being that looked like a giant octopus raised one of its arms. "What do you propose we do with them?" "Controlled integration," Veltar replied. "We place them under our guidance. We limit their technology. We prevent them from spreading their violence to other worlds. It is for their own good, and for the safety of all civilized species." Jake had heard these words before. Controlled integration was a fancy way of saying slavery. The council would allow humans to live, but only as servants to other species. Earth would become a colony. Humans would work, but they would never be free to make their own choices. One by one, representatives from different species stood up to speak. Jake listened as they talked about humanity like he was not even there. "Their aggression levels are off the charts," said a being that looked like a walking tree. "They are a threat to galactic peace. Their environmental destruction shows they cannot be trusted with technology," added a creature made of what appeared to be living metal. "They would poison the galaxy as they have poisoned their own world." "They build weapons instead of art," said a floating jellyfish-like being. "Their priorities are all wrong." Jake wanted to stand up and defend his species. He wanted to tell them about human kindness, about human creativity, about all the good things humans had done. But his instructions had been clear. He was here to listen, not to argue. The debate went on for hours. Some species suggested destroying Earth completely. Others wanted to limit human population. A few suggested moving all humans to a prison planet where they could not hurt anyone else, but most agreed with Veltar. Controlled integration seemed like the best solution. Humans would be allowed to live, but under strict supervision. Finally, it was time for the vote. "All in favor of controlled integration for the human species," Veltar announced. Lights began appearing throughout the chamber. Blue lights meant yes. Red lights meant no. Jake watched as blue light after blue light appeared. The tally board showed the count rising, 100, 200, 300, 500, 700. When it was over, the numbers were clear. 8 on 46 species had voted yes. 0 had voted no. Only Earth's representative had abstained from voting. The chamber erupted in satisfied murmurs. The decision was unanimous. Humanity would be subjugated. Veltar turned to Jake. "Do you have anything to say before we implement this decision?" Jake stood up slowly. The chamber fell silent. Thousands of alien eyes turned to look at him. He was just one human in a room full of beings who had just voted to enslave his entire species. He smiled. "I understand your decision," Jake said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "We have been watching you too, you know. We have seen how you treat species under controlled integration. We know what you really mean when you say those words." Some of the aliens shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "You think humans are dangerous because we fight wars," Jake continued. "You think we are stupid because we have not achieved galactic travel yet. You think we are weak because we seem primitive compared to you." He looked directly at Veltar. "You are right about one thing. We are dangerous. But you have made a mistake. A very big mistake." "What mistake is that?" Veltar asked. Jake's smile grew wider. "You assume that because we appear primitive, we actually are primitive. You assume that because we have not joined your galactic community, we have not been preparing for it." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device. He pressed a button on it. "We have been listening to your communications for 60 years. We know the location of every military base, every fleet formation, every secret facility in this galaxy. We know your weaknesses, your fears, and your plans." The chamber began to buzz with worried voices. "We understand your decision," Jake repeated, "but I think you should understand ours. We will not be subjugated, we will not be controlled, and we will not be underestimated." He pressed another button on his device. A message went out instantly across space to Earth. "Tell them it's time to come home," he said into the device. Then he looked back at the council. "You voted to make us your servants. We voted to decline. I suggest you prepare yourselves. The war you think you avoided by voting for peace has just begun." Jake walked out of the chamber while the aliens sat in stunned silence. Behind him, the sound of panicked voices began to rise. The vote was over. But the real test was about to begin. Admiral Lisa Carter stood on the bridge of the New Horizon and watched the alien fleet approach Earth's solar system. 6 months had passed since the Galactic Council's vote, and now they were coming to enforce their decision. The integration fleet was impressive. 200 ships from 12 different species all working together to subjugate humanity. Their ships were sleek and advanced, powered by technology that humans were supposedly too primitive to understand. Lisa smiled as she watched them come closer. "How many ships are we tracking?" she asked her communications officer. 200. "Confirmed," Lieutenant Ben Rodriguez replied. "Zephyrian crystal ships, Drakmori war cruisers, Vorthon battleships, and several other classes we have been studying." Lisa nodded. They had been studying alien ship designs for decades. Every transmission intercepted, every image analyzed, every weakness cataloged. The aliens thought they were the only ones doing reconnaissance. "Admiral," called out Commander Kate Wilson from the tactical station. "They are sending us a message. Put it through." The main screen flickered to life. A Zephyrian commander appeared, its crystalline features glowing with confidence. "Primitive humans," the alien said. "You will surrender immediately. Your Galactic Council has voted for your integration. Resist, and you will be destroyed." Lisa stepped forward so the alien could see her clearly. "This is Admiral Lisa Carter of the Terran Defense Force. You voted to make us your servants. We voted to decline your generous offer." The alien's glow flickered with what might have been confusion. "You have no choice in this matter. Your species lacks the technology to resist galactic authority. Surrender now and your subjugation will be swift and painless." "I am afraid there has been a misunderstanding," Lisa replied calmly. "You see, we never said we lacked advanced technology. We just never showed it to you before." She gestured to her communications officer. "Show them what they missed during their surveys." The view screen changed to show the solar system from the alien fleet's perspective. For a moment, everything looked normal. Earth, Mars, the asteroid belt, all appearing just as they had during previous alien observations. Then the stealth fields dropped. The asteroid belt came alive with thousands of weapon platforms. Mars revealed massive shipyards and defensive installations. Earth's moon bristled with cannon batteries and missile launchers. Even the outer planets showed signs of human fortification. "How is this possible?" the alien commander whispered. "Humans have been in space for longer than you think," Lisa said. "We just preferred that you did not know about it. We have been preparing for this day since we first detected your transmissions decades ago." Around Earth, more ships began appearing as their cloaking system shut down. Human vessels that had been hiding in plain sight suddenly became visible. The alien fleet found itself surrounded by over 300 Earth ships. "This is impossible," the alien repeated. "Our surveys showed no advanced technology." "Your surveys showed exactly what we wanted them to show," Lisa explained. "We learned early that the galaxy does not welcome species it considers dangerous, so we appeared harmless while we prepared for the day you would try to enslave us." The human ships were unlike anything in the alien databases. They were sleek but deadly, covered in weapons the aliens did not recognize. Their hulls were made from materials that seemed to absorb scanning beams. Their engines left energy signatures that defied galactic understanding of physics. "Last chance," Lisa said. "Leave our system now and no one has to die today." The alien commander's image flickered as he consulted with his fleet. When he returned, his glow had taken on an angry red tint. "You are bluffing. No pre-galactic species has ever resisted integration. We have superior numbers and superior technology." "You have superior numbers," Lisa agreed. "As for superior technology, well, let us find out." The battle began when a Drakmori war cruiser fired first. Its plasma cannon sent a brilliant beam of energy toward the new horizon. The beam struck the human ship's shields and simply disappeared, absorbed by defensive systems the aliens had never seen before. Lisa shook her head sadly. "Fire." The human fleet opened up all at once. Their weapons were unlike anything the galaxy had ever encountered. Instead of energy beams or kinetic projectiles, they fired something that looked like controlled black holes. The tiny spheres of darkness moved through space and simply erased everything they touched. The first wave of alien ships disappeared in seconds. Their shields, their armor, their hulls, nothing could stop the human weapons. Entire ships just ceased to exist, leaving only empty space where they had been moments before. "What are those weapons?" the alien commander screamed. "Gravitational collapse missiles," Lisa replied casually. "We compress matter into singularities and then release them in a controlled fashion. Very effective against ships that rely on traditional shielding." The alien fleet tried to retreat, but human ships were faster. They moved with impossible grace, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. Their engines allowed them to change direction instantly, making them nearly impossible to target. "How are your ships so maneuverable?" the alien commander demanded as his fleet was picked apart around him. "Inertial negation fields," Commander Wilson answered from her station. "We learned to cancel out the effects of momentum and acceleration. Our pilots can pull maneuvers that would turn any other crew into paste." The battle lasted exactly 17 minutes. When it was over, 180 alien ships had been destroyed or disabled. The remaining 20 were allowed to flee, but not before Lisa sent them a message. "Return to your galactic council," she said to the surviving alien commander. "Tell them that Earth is under new management. Tell them that humans do not make good slaves, and tell them that if they send another fleet, we will not be as gentle as we were today." The alien ships limped away, their crews in shock. They had expected to find a primitive world defended by crude weapons and desperate courage. Instead, they had found a fortress defended by technology that made their own look like stone tools. As the alien fleet disappeared into hyperspace, Lisa turned to her crew. "How are our casualties?" she asked. "None, Admiral," Rodriguez reported. "Not even a scratch on our hulls." Lisa nodded with satisfaction. Years of preparation had paid off. Decades of secret research and hidden construction had given humanity the tools they needed to defend themselves. "Send a message to all human ships throughout the galaxy," she ordered. "Operation Homecoming is now active. It is time to remind the galaxy that humans are not prey." "Yes, Admiral," Wilson replied with a grin. "I think they are about to learn that the hunters have become the hunted." On planets throughout the galaxy, human ships began emerging from hiding places where they had waited for months or even years. The species that had voted to subjugate Earth were about to discover that humans had been preparing for war, while the aliens had been preparing for peace. The integration fleet's destruction was just the beginning. The real war was about to start. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in their history. Representatives from 847 species crowded into chambers that had never seen such panic. The news of the integration fleet's destruction had spread across the galaxy in hours. Veltar stood before the assembly, his crystalline form dim with worry. "The humans have revealed military capabilities far beyond our estimates. They destroyed 180 ships in 17 minutes. "How is this possible?" demanded General Thrak of the Drakmori Empire. His reptilian features showed deep concern. "Our intelligence showed them to be primitive. They barely had spaceflight capability." "Our intelligence was wrong," Veltar admitted. "The humans have been deceiving us for decades. They have technology we do not understand." On the world of Drakmor Prime, Captain Ben Hughes was demonstrating just how wrong their intelligence had been. His strike force of 12 human ships appeared without warning, above the planet's primary weapons manufacturing complex. The Drakmori defenders scrambled to respond, but their ships moved like they were underwater compared to the human vessels. Ben's ships danced between the alien fire, their inertial negation fields allowing them to change direction instantly. "Target the shield generators," Ben ordered. "We want the facility intact." Human weapons lanced out with surgical precision. Instead of destroying the complex, they shut down its defenses piece by piece. The Drakmori watched in horror as their most secure military installation was taken apart like a puzzle. General Amy Foster led the ground assault. Her soldiers moved through the complex with perfect coordination, their equipment allowing them to see through walls and predict enemy movements. The proud Drakmori warriors found themselves outmatched at every turn. "How do they know our tactics?" a Drakmori officer asked as his squad was surrounded by humans who had somehow predicted their flanking maneuver. "They have been studying us," Amy replied through her helmet's translator. "While you were deciding our fate, we were learning yours." The complex was secured in 6 hours. The Drakmori had expected a long siege. Instead, they faced humans who seemed to know their base better than they did. Meanwhile, across the galaxy on Zephyr Prime, Dr. Carl Stone was leading a very different kind of assault. Instead of attacking with ships and soldiers, he was attacking with code and cunning. The Zephyrian homeworld's defense network was the most advanced in the galaxy. Crystalline computers that thought at the speed of light, protected by security systems that had never been breached. Carl and his team of human hackers had spent 3 years learning how to break them. "Initiating Cascade Protocol," Carl said as his fingers flew across his holographic keyboard. "Their security is impressive, but they think like crystals, rigid, predictable." "How long until we have control?" asked his second-in-command, Lieutenant Susan Baker. "Already done," Carl replied with a grin. The Zephyrian defense network turned on itself. Planetary cannons that had been aimed at incoming threats swiveled to target ships trying to leave orbit. Communication systems began broadcasting human messages instead of Zephyrian orders. "Attention Zephyr Prime," Carl's voice echoed across the planet. "Your defense network is now under human control. Any ship attempting to leave orbit will be destroyed. This is what happens when you vote to enslave humanity." The Zephyrian government was trapped on their own homeworld by their own weapons. Ships that tried to escape were shot down by their own planetary defenses. Similar strikes were happening across the galaxy. Human forces appeared everywhere at once, hitting military targets with devastating precision. They did not attack civilian populations or destroy cities. Instead, they systematically dismantled the galaxy's military infrastructure. On Vorthon Major, Commander Rick James led a boarding action against a military space station. His soldiers moved through the corridors, like ghosts, their advanced armor making them nearly invisible. "How are they doing this?" a Vorthon officer asked as human soldiers appeared behind his defensive line. "Phase-shifting technology," Rick explained as his team secured the station's command center. "We can move through solid matter for short periods. Makes walls rather meaningless in combat." The Vorthon defenders surrendered when they realized they could not hide behind any cover. The humans could simply walk through their barricades. Back on Centris Prime, the Galactic Council was receiving reports of defeat after defeat. Every species that had voted for humanity's subjugation was being systematically attacked. "They are not just fighting back," reported Admiral Kex of the Toran League. "They are hunting us. They know the location of every military facility, every secret base, every hidden fleet." "How long have they been watching us?" asked Counselor Narn of the Kalari Confederacy. The answer came from an unexpected source. Jake Morrison walked into the council chambers, accompanied by 6 human soldiers in advanced combat armor. "We have been watching you since 1952, Jake said calmly. "That was when we first detected your signals and realized we were not alone in the universe." The council erupted in shocked murmurs. Jake continued speaking as if he had not just revealed a stunning secret. "We spent the next 70 years learning everything we could about you. Your languages, your technology, your military capabilities, your political structures. We studied you the way scientists study insects." He walked to the center of the chamber, the same place where he had been judged 6 months earlier. "You made one critical error in your assessment of humanity. You saw our capacity for war and assumed it was our only capacity. You never considered that a species capable of such organized violence might also be capable of organized deception." "This is impossible," Veltar protested. "We would have detected advanced human activity." "You detected exactly what we wanted you to detect," Jake replied. "We showed you a primitive world while we built a galactic infrastructure in secret. We let you think we were fighting each other while we were actually preparing to fight all of you." The truth was devastating. While the galaxy had been watching Earth's surface, humans had been building hidden bases throughout the solar system. While aliens had been counting human weapons, humans had been developing technologies that made alien science obsolete. "We gave you every chance to treat us as equals," Jake continued. "We hoped that when first contact came it would be peaceful. But you chose to judge us. You chose to condemn us. You chose to enslave us." He looked directly at Veltar. "Now you will learn what it means to be hunted by a species that has spent 70 years preparing for war." Reports continued flooding in from across the galaxy. Human forces were striking everywhere, crippling military installations and capturing strategic positions. The Grand Armada that had been assembled to enforce humanity's subjugation was being destroyed piece by piece. "How do we stop them?" asked Counselor Narn. Jake smiled the same cold smile he had worn 6 months earlier. "You surrender," he said, simply. "You acknowledge that your vote to subjugate Earth was a mistake. You recognize humanity's independence, and you pay reparations for the attempted enslavement of our species. And if we refuse," Veltar asked, "then we continue our campaign until your civilizations exist only in history books," Jake replied without emotion. "We have identified the home systems of every species that voted against us. We can reach any of them within weeks. Your choice is simple: negotiate now or be conquered later." The council sat in stunned silence. In less than a year, humanity had gone from being judged as primitive to holding the entire galaxy hostage. The hunters had indeed become the hunted. The great chambers of Centris Prime hosted another historic vote, but this time everything was different. Jake Morrison sat not in the defendant's chair where he had been judged 2 years earlier, but at the head of the council table as Earth's Secretary of Galactic Affairs. The chamber was packed with representatives from the same 847 species that had once voted to subjugate humanity, but now their voices were quiet and respectful. The confident arrogance was gone, replaced by nervous anticipation. Veltar stood to address the assembly, his crystalline form glowing with what humans had learned was embarrassment. "We gather today," To vote on the formal recognition of the Terran Federation as a sovereign galactic power, he announced. All in favor? One by one, lights appeared throughout the chamber. Blue lights, each representing a species voting yes. Jake watched as the count rose steadily. 100, 200, 500, 800. When the final tally was announced, the numbers told the complete story. 846 species had voted in favor. 0 had voted against. Only humanity abstained from voting on their own status. The Anim chamber fell silent as Jake rose to address the council. 2 years earlier, he had been a defendant pleading for his species' freedom. Now he was the representative of the galaxy's newest major power. 2 years ago, you voted to enslave my species because you saw our capacity for war and judged us dangerous, Jake began. You were right about one thing. We are dangerous. But you made one crucial error. He looked around the chamber, making eye contact with representatives from dozens of species. You assumed that our capacity for war meant we could not build, could not create, could not unite. You saw our conflicts and missed our cooperation. You saw our weapons and ignored our wisdom. Dr. Helen Price stepped forward from the human delegation. As Earth's chief scientist, she had been instrumental in developing the technologies that had made human victory possible. Allow me to share some information that might interest you, Helen said, activating a holographic display above the chamber. Badir. Display showed images that shocked the assembled representatives. Underground facilities on Earth that rivaled anything in the galaxy. Fusion reactors hidden beneath the ocean floor. Manufacturing complexes built into the far side of Earth's moon. We have been preparing for galactic contact since 1952, Helen explained. When we first detected your signals, we knew this day would come. We knew we would be judged. More images appeared. Space elevators disguised as research facilities. Orbital shipyards hidden behind holographic projections. Weapons, testing ranges in remote star systems. While you were studying what you thought was a primitive world, Helen continued, we were studying you. We learned your languages, your technologies, your weaknesses. We prepared for every possible scenario. The revelation was stunning. For over 70 years, humanity had been living a carefully orchestrated lie. They had appeared primitive while building one of the most advanced technological civilizations in the galaxy. But why hide? Asked Counselor Narn of the Kalari. Why not reveal your true capabilities and join the galactic community as equals? Jake stepped forward to answer. Because we studied your history. We learned what happened to species you considered dangerous. They were either subjugated or destroyed. We knew that if you saw our true strength, you would try to eliminate us before we became a threat. So instead, you waited for us to threaten you first. General Thrak observed with something that might have been admiration. We hoped it would not come to that, Jake replied. We would have preferred peaceful first contact. But when you voted to enslave us, you forced our hand. The chamber buzzed with quiet conversations as the implications sank in. The galaxy's newest major power had been hiding in plain sight for generations, preparing for a war that everyone thought would never come. Ambassador Yellen of the Vorthan Empire raised a hand to speak. What happens now? The old galactic order is broken. How do we move forward? Jake looked around the chamber one final time before giving his answer. You have a choice, he said simply. We can be your enemies, and you will lose. Or we can be your allies, and you will prosper. But we will never again be your servants. He gestured to the assembled representatives. Humanity does not seek to rule the galaxy. We seek to join it as equals. We offer our technology, our knowledge, our partnership to any species willing to treat us with respect. And those who refuse? Asked a representative from the Outer Rim territories. We'll be left alone as long as they leave us alone, Jake replied. We are not conquerors. We are defenders. But we are very good at defending ourselves. Dr. Helen Price activated another display, this one showing peaceful applications of human technology. Medical devices that could cure diseases thought incurable. Energy systems that could power entire worlds without environmental damage. transportation methods that could connect the galaxy in ways never before possible. "This is what we offer to our friends," she said. "Partnership, not domination." The vote that followed was even more unanimous than the first. Species after species stepped forward to offer formal alliance with the Terran Federation. Trade agreements were proposed. Cultural exchange programs were suggested. Military cooperation pacts were discussed. The Drakmori offered to share their warrior traditions with human soldiers. The Zephyrians proposed joint research projects. Even the mysterious Void Dancers expressed interest in studying human consciousness. "There is one thing I want to make clear," Jake said as the session drew to a close. "Humanity remembers its friends, but it also remembers its enemies. We are willing to forgive the past, but we will not forget it." He looked directly at Veltar. "You judged us without understanding us. You voted to enslave us without considering the consequences. Learn from this mistake. The next species you encounter might not be as merciful as we have been." The Zephyrian delegate's form grew brighter, with what humans now recognized as shame and regret. "The lesson is learned," Veltar replied. "The galaxy will be more careful in its judgments from now on." As the formal session ended, representatives from dozens of species approached the human delegation. They offered trade deals, research partnerships, and cultural exchanges. The species that had once planned to subjugate Earth were now competing for favorable relationships with humanity. Jake walked through the corridors of Centris Prime as the session ended. Alien diplomats bowed respectfully as he passed. Some offered gifts. Others requested private meetings to discuss bilateral agreements. It was a far cry from his first visit, when he had been treated as a primitive representative of an inferior species. Commander Kate Wilson joined him as they walked toward the human embassy. "How does it feel?" she asked. 2 years ago they wanted to make us slaves. Now they are begging to be our allies." Jake considered the question carefully. "It feels like justice," he said finally. "But more than that, it feels like the beginning of something new. For the first time in galactic history, a species has joined the community through strength rather than submission." They paused at a window overlooking the space station's docking bays. Ships from hundreds of different worlds were arriving to establish diplomatic relations with Earth. The galaxy was eager to learn from humanity's example. "What do you think happens next?" Kate asked. Jake smiled the same confident smile he had worn during his first appearance before the Council. "Now, we see if the galaxy can handle having humans as equals instead of subjects. Something tells me it is going to be very interesting." In the months that followed, the transformation of galactic society was remarkable. Species that had never cooperated began working together on projects inspired by human examples. The threat of human retaliation had forced them to reconsider their relationships with each other. Trade flourished as human technology opened new possibilities. Medical advances developed through human-alien cooperation saved millions of lives. Cultural exchange programs led to unprecedented understanding between species. The galaxy learned that humans were indeed dangerous, but they were also creative, generous, and surprisingly forgiving. The species that had voted to subjugate Earth discovered that having humanity as an ally was far better than having them as an enemy. And in the corridors of Centris Prime, alien diplomats still whispered the same message in dozens of languages. Never underestimate the humans. The lesson had been learned, but it had come at a high price. The old galactic order was gone forever, replaced by a new era where humanity stood as equals among the stars. The species that had once planned to make humans their servants now competed for the privilege of calling them friends. The vote was ancient history. The real story was just beginning. 1 year had passed since the fateful vote, and the galaxy was not the same place it had been before. The grand civilizations that had ruled space for millennia now lived in constant fear of human attack. Admiral Steve Parker commanded the human war effort from his flagship, the Liberty. The ship moved constantly through space, never staying in one location long enough to be tracked. From its mobile command center, Steve coordinated attacks across 47 star systems. "Status report," Steve called out as he walked onto the bridge. 3 more Kalari supply convoys interdicted in the Outer Rim, reported Captain Janet Mills. The Vorthan Empire has lost contact with 6 of their border outposts, and the Toran League is requesting another ceasefire to negotiate. Steve nodded with satisfaction. The Grand Armada that had once numbered 3,000 ships was now reduced to fewer than 800. Most of those remaining vessels were too afraid to leave their home systems. The human strategy was simple but devastating. They did not attack civilian populations or destroy planets. Instead, they systematically dismantled the military and economic infrastructure that held the galaxy together. Trade routes that had operated safely for centuries were now too dangerous to use. Communications networks went dark without warning. Military bases that had stood for thousands of years were reduced to scrap metal in minutes. "Sir," called Lieutenant Dan Foster from the communications station, "we are receiving a transmission from the Vorthan homeworld. It is marked as diplomatic priority." "Put it through." The screen flickered to life, showing a Vorthan diplomat. The tall, pale alien looked exhausted and defeated. "Admiral Parker," the Vorthan said, "I am Ambassador Yellen of the Vorthan Empire. I come to you with a formal request from my government." "I am listening," Steve replied. "We wish to negotiate terms for a ceasefire. The Vorthan Empire formally acknowledges the independence of Earth and the Terran Federation. We are prepared to discuss reparations for our participation in the vote to subjugate your species." Steve had been expecting this. The Vorthan Empire was one of the oldest and most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. If they were surrendering, others would follow quickly. "Your terms are acceptable as a starting point," Steve said. "Commander, Kate Wilson will be in contact with you within the week to begin formal negotiations." "Thank you, Admiral," the Vorthan replied with obvious relief. The Vorthan Empire looks forward to peaceful relations with humanity. Similar scenes were playing out across the galaxy. One by one, the species that had voted for humanity's subjugation were sending envoys to request peace. On the world of New Cyprus, Commander Kate Wilson met with representatives from the Kalari Confederacy. The meeting took place in a neutral space station that humans had captured and converted into a diplomatic facility. "The Kalari Confederacy offers its formal apology for our vote in the Galactic Council," said Councillor Nash, his forearms spread in a gesture of submission. "We were wrong to judge humanity so harshly." Kate looked at the alien diplomat with cool professionalism. She had studied Kalari culture for years and knew that this gesture was deeply significant for their species. "Apologies are a start," she said, "but actions have consequences. The Kalari Confederacy supported a plan to enslave 4 billion human beings. Saying sorry is not enough." "What do you require?" Nash asked. "Full recognition of Terran sovereignty over all systems currently claimed by humanity, reparations equal to 50 billion galactic credits, and a formal treaty guaranteeing that the Kalari will never again support hostile action against Earth." Nash's eyes widened at the size of the reparations demand, but he nodded slowly. "These terms are harsh, but fair. We will recommend acceptance to our government." Similar negotiations were happening throughout human-controlled space. The proud species that had once looked down on humanity were now competing to offer the most generous terms for peace. The Drakmori Empire, once known for their warrior culture, sent their most honored general to negotiate. General Thrak arrived at the human diplomatic station with an escort of only 3 ships, a sign of complete trust in human mercy. "The Drakmori have always respected strength in battle," he told Commander Kate Wilson. "Your warriors have proven themselves superior. To ours, we seek not just peace but alliance." "Alliance is a strong word," Kate replied. "What are you offering?" "Full access to Drakmori military technology, joint training exercises between our forces, and our pledge that Drakmori warriors will stand with humanity against any who threaten Earth." It was an unprecedented offer. The Drakmori had never offered alliance to any species they considered weaker than themselves. Even the mysterious void dancers, beings of pure energy who rarely communicated with physical species, sent a representative to negotiate. Their envoy appeared as a shifting cloud of light that somehow conveyed emotions directly into human minds. We underestimated the depth of human preparation, the entity communicated without words. The Void Dancers acknowledge our error and seek to correct it through peaceful cooperation. But the most significant surrender came from the Zephyrian collective. Veltar himself arrived at the human diplomatic station, his crystalline form dim with shame. "I was wrong about humanity," he admitted to Commander Wilson. "I saw your capacity for war and assumed it was all you were. I failed to see your capacity, for strategy, for patience, for long-term thinking." "You saw what we wanted you to see," Kate replied. "We learned early that the galaxy fears species it considers dangerous, so we appeared harmless while we prepared for the day you would judge us." "And now?" Veltar asked. "Now the galaxy knows what humanity is truly capable of. The question is whether you can accept us as equals instead of trying to control us." "The Zephyrian collective offers not just peace but partnership," Veltar said. "We wish to learn from humanity's example. Perhaps there is wisdom in your approach to survival." Back on Centris Prime, the Galactic Council chambers that had once echoed with confident votes to subjugate Earth now hosted desperate emergency sessions. Species that had never agreed on anything suddenly found themselves united in their desire to make peace with humanity. "How do we proceed?" asked Councillor Narn of the Kalari. "The humans have made it clear that they will not stop until we acknowledge our mistakes." "Then we acknowledge them," said General Thrak. "Pride is worth nothing if our worlds burn because of it." Admiral Kex of the Tauran League nodded in agreement. "The humans have proven they can reach any of our worlds. They have shown they can defeat our fleets, and they have demonstrated that they prefer negotiation to annihilation." "What kind of galaxy will this create?" asked a representative of the Centauri Alliance. "If humans become a major power, everything changes." "Everything has already changed," Veltar replied quietly. "The old order is gone. We can either adapt to the new reality or be destroyed by our refusal to accept it." The debate continued, but the outcome was never really in doubt. Faced with human military superiority and the systematic destruction of their infrastructure, the galaxy had no choice but to submit. Species after species sent formal surrenders to the human diplomatic corps. The terms were always the same: recognition of human independence, substantial reparations, and guarantees of non-aggression. Within months, nearly every species that had voted for humanity's subjugation had sent envoys to negotiate peace. The few holdouts found themselves increasingly isolated as their allies made separate deals with Earth. The message was clear throughout the galaxy: resistance to humanity was futile. The species that had once planned to make humans their servants were now begging to become human allies. The tables had completely turned, and everyone knew it.